The night we decided to kill the stranger was the same night the gods chose him. I remember the smell of rain before it fell. I remember the way the elders avoided looking
But how can
at
we
the sky.
fight what we cannot see?
And I remember
Together
the
we are
stranger's
stronger.
eyes.
My people,
Calm,
do not be afraid. We
almost
will overcome
pitying,
this.
But how can we
as if
fight
he
what
knew
we cannot
something we
see?
did not. We thought he came to beg. We did not know he came to claim. And when the earth
activating!
shook beneath our shrine,
Stay back!
everything
It's
we believed
powerful!
about blood, birth, and kinship
activating!
shattered. But
Welcome,
by
young
then,
ones. What
it
brings
was
you
too
here?
late.
Great King, we seek your wisdom. Yes,
In
please
my
guide
village
us.
of
Listen
Orogbo,
well, and you
power
shall
was
learn.
not given,
Welcome,
it was
young
inherited.
ones. What brings...
We did not
Fresh
choose
tomatoes
kings.
today?
Kings
Yes,
were born
picked
with
this
the
morning.
mark,
Hi,
a
mister.
thin
Hello
crescent
there.
scar behind the left ear,
Fresh tomatoes
shaped
today?
like a sliver
Yes,
of moon.
picked this morning.
It was the
Hi,
sign our
mister.
ancestors
Hello there.
left behind. Proof that
Fresh
royal
tomatoes
blood
today?
still flowed
Yes,
through
picked this
mortal
morning.
veins.
Hi,
Or
mister.
so
Hello
we
there.
believed. The stranger
tomatoes
arrived
today?
on market day.
Yes.
The sun was harsh, pressing down on our shoulders like punishment. Women spread bright wrappers across wooden tables. Palm oil shimmered in clay walls. The smell of dried fish mixed with dust and roasted plantain. Children chased goats between the stalls. That was when I saw him. He walked slowly, barefoot, his feet cracked but steady. He wore a faded indigo cloth tied across his chest and a leather satchel hanging at his side. His hair was braided back, neat despite the long journey etched into his skin. He did not look rich, he did not look powerful, but he did not look afraid either. And that was the first problem. Strangers who came to Orogbo always bowed at the entrance. They greeted the guardian statue. They asked
Look,
permission
he's
to
back.
trade,
He walks
to
with
sleep,
such purpose.
to drink from
A
our
true
stream.
hero returns.
This
you, my
one did
friends.
none of that.
Look, he's
He
back.
walked straight
he walks
past
with
the
such
shrine.
purpose.
A hush followed him like a shadow. I
My people,
felt
do
it.
not be afraid.
That
We will overcome
tightening
this.
in
But
the
how can
chest
we
when
fight what we
something
cannot
is
see?
wrong, but
Together
you cannot
we are
yet
stronger.
name it. Who is he? My mother whispered beside me. I do not know, I replied, but my eyes would not leave him. He stopped in the center of the market square, where the red earth had been flattened by generations of feet. Slowly he turned in a circle, studying us as if memorizing faces. Then he spoke. I have returned. Returned. The word struck the air like a drumbeat. Murmurs rose instantly. Old
My son,
Papa
to
Daike,
lead
who
is to
had seen
listen.
70
Yes,
harvests,
Elder, I
stepped
understand.
forward with his
Good.
carved
Now,
walking
go
stick.
with wisdom.
Returned from where? He demanded.
Everyone, the
stranger's
time has
gaze
come to
settled
unite
on
and
him.
build our future.
Calm,
With your
unshaken.
strength,
He said, from exile. The market erupted in laughter. Exile? In Orogbom? Only royal blood could be exiled.
My
You
son,
mock
to
us,
lead is
Papa
to
Daike
listen.
snapped.
yes, Elder,
There is
I
no
understand.
prince missing
My
from
son,
this
to
village.
lead is to...
The stranger tilted his head slightly. Not missing, he corrected. Hidden. A wind moved through the square then, sudden and sharp. The hanging fabrics fluttered violently. The oil in the bowls trembled. My heart began to pound, because I remembered something. A story whispered when I was a child. The night the former king's newborn son disappeared. The palace was locked. The guards swore no one entered. Yet by dawn, the cradle was empty. The queen never recovered. She died staring at the doorway. The elders declared the child taken by spirits. The stranger reached behind his left ear, and with deliberate slowness he turned his head. There it was, a crescent scar, perfect, not carved, not burned, natural. The laughter died. You could hear the buzzing of flies again. This is impossible, someone muttered. The stranger's eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on me. You, he said softly, you know the old stories. My throat dried instantly. How do you know my face? I asked before fear could silence me. He smiled, not cruelly, but knowingly, because I have watched this village long enough. Watched? From where? The elders gathered quickly, their robes brushing against the dust. I could smell their fear, bitter like crushed leaves. Papa Daike raised his staff. You can forge marks, he declared. Blood must be tested. The stranger nodded. Then take me to the shrine. A gasp rippled through the villagers. The shrine was sacred. Only true descendants could stand before the ancestral stone without consequence. Impostors were struck with madness. Some bled from the eyes. One man, years ago, fell dead before he could speak. "You are willing to risk death?" I asked him quietly as the crowd began to part. His gaze met mine again. I did not walk back into a rock bomb to die. I walked back to sit. Sit? On the Iroko throne? Madness. Yet something in my chest twisted. Not disbelief, not entirely. Recognition. As we escorted him toward the shrine at the edge of the village, thunder rolled in the distance. The air grew thick. Even the birds fell silent. At the entrance of the shrine, the ancestral stone stood tall, dark and veined like old skin. Palm wine stains marked its base. Cowrie shells circled it in patterns of protection. The elder stepped aside. "If you lie, the spirit will expose you," Papa Daike said, voice trembling despite his effort to sound strong. The stranger removed his satchel, dropped it gently to the ground. Then he stepped forward, bare feet touching sacred soil. The wind howled suddenly, whipping dust into our eyes. And when his palm touched the ancestral stone, the earth shook. Not slightly, violently. Women screamed, men stumbled. The stone glowed faintly beneath his hand. And from deep within the shrine, something answered. A sound, a roar, ancient, alive. The stranger did not flinch. He closed his eyes as if greeting an old friend. When he opened them again, they were not afraid. They were certain. And that was the moment I realized we had not welcomed a stranger into our village. We had awakened a king. But the gods were not finished speaking.
The roar from the shrine did not fade. It sank into the ground. It moved beneath our feet like something alive, circling, searching. Women grabbed their children, men tightened their grips on their staffs and machetes. The elders began chanting under their breath, voices trembling like dry leaves in harmattan wind. And the stranger, he smiled. Not with pride, with relief. The ancestral stone pulsed faintly beneath his palm, its veins glowing like embers buried in ash. I could smell something strange in the air. Not smoke, not rain, but iron, blood, old and remembered. Papa Daike fell to his knees first. It was not worship, it was shock. "This cannot be," he whispered. "The spirits do not answer strangers." The stranger finally withdrew his hand. The trembling stopped instantly, as though the earth had only been breathing. Silence fell heavy. He turned to face us. "My name," he said calmly, "is Obina." The name struck the elders like a slap. Obina? The lost prince had been named Obina. My skin prickled. "You expect us to believe that," one of the younger chiefs backed, "that you survived alone for 25 years, that spirits carried you into exile and now returned you like a forgotten goat?" A flicker passed through Obina's eyes. Pain, not anger. "I was not carried by spirits," he said. "I was carried by fear." The crowd murmured. The elders stiffened. And in that moment, I understood something dangerous. This was not just a claim to the throne, this was an accusation. "Speak clearly," Papa Daike demanded, though his voice had lost his authority. "What are you suggesting?" Obina stepped away from the shrine, brushing dust from his indigo cloth. "I was not stolen, I was taken." My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Taken by whom?" someone whispered. Obina's gaze swept across the semicircle of elders. "By one of you." Gasps exploded around us. The accusation hung in the air like a curse. The youngest elder, Chief Unmara, staggered backward. "You lie," he shouted too quickly. But Obina did not look at him. He looked at Papa Daike. And Papa Daike's hands began to shake. "You were there the night I disappeared," Obina continued, voice steady but low. "You told the queen the gods demanded
A
sacrifice.
sacrifice?
You told
Your
her the
child is
child was
forbidden.
cursed."
Forbid?
The wind picked up again, swirling red dust around our ankles. I remember that night vaguely, the wailing, the pounding of drums, the sudden announcement at dawn. The prince had been taken by spirits. That was what we were told. Obina stepped closer to Papa Daike. You carried me beyond the river, he said softly. You thought I was asleep, but I remember your voice. Papa Daike's staff slipped from his hand. The sound of wood hitting earth echoed louder than thunder. You were born during the eclipse, Papa Daike muttered, almost to himself. The prophecy said a child of shadow would bring fire to Orogum. The villagers began to back away. Prophecy. We do not play with such words. What prophecy? I demanded before fear could silence me again. Obina turned to me, and for the first time, his calm cracked. They feared me, he said. The old oracle declared that a king born under a darkened sun would break tradition, that he would change what should never be changed. His jaw tightened. So they chose exile over risk. The elder's silence was confession enough. But you did not die, I said quietly. No, Obina replied. I was found. By whom? I almost asked, but something in his expression stopped me. There were things he was not saying, things worse than abandonment. The sky darkened rapidly. The storm we had felt earlier finally arrived, clouds rolling heavy above us. Chief Unora recovered first. Even if what you say is true, tradition does not bend to prophecy. The throne belongs to the council until a rightful heir is confirmed. Obina's eyes hardened. The shrine has confirmed me. The shrine answers power, not purity. That was dangerous talk, because it meant something else could command the ancestors, something not clean. The wind howled louder, and suddenly, one of the cowrie circles at the shrine's base cracked apart, a sharp, unnatural crack. Every head turned. Obina froze. The earth trembled again, but not in welcome, in warning. The ancestral stone began to darken, its earlier glow fading into something deeper, heavier, angrier. And then a voice emerged. Not from a mouth, not from a body, but from the shrine itself. Blood alone does not make a king. The words vibrated through bone and marrow. Women collapsed to their knees. Men covered their ears. I felt my stomach twist, as though something invisible had reached inside me. Obina stood unmoving. The voice continued. A king must choose the village over himself. The wind died instantly. Stillness returned. And then the final words came. This one carries fire. The shrine fell silent. All eyes turned to Obina. Fire. In our prophecies, fire meant destruction or purification, and the difference depended on choice. Obina looked around us, at the frightened children, the elders trembling, the cracked shrine. His jaw tightened. I did not return to burn Orogum, he said quietly, but the sky answered him with lightning, and in that blinding flash, I saw something behind him, a shadow, tall, horned, gone in an instant. My breath caught, because whatever had followed him back to our village, it was not finished with us, and the throne of Orogum had just awakened something far older than blood. The lightning did not strike the ground. It struck the Iroko throne. Even from the shrine, we saw it, a white blade of light cutting through the sky and landing directly on the palace courtyard. The sound that followed was not thunder. It was a crack, like something sacred breaking. The villagers screamed. "The throne!" someone shouted. We ran. Dust rose behind us as we raced from the shrine toward the heart of Orogum. The storm had fully arrived now. Rain lashed our skin. Palm trees bent low, their leaves hissing like angry spirits. When we reached the courtyard, smoke curled upward from the carved Iroko chair, the throne that had seated kings for generations. The wood was blackened, but not destroyed, burned, marked. And behind it, carved into the palace wall where lightning had touched, was a symbol, a crescent moon, split in half. My chest
tightened. Obina stepped forward slowly, rain sliding down his face. His expression was no longer calm, it was troubled. "This is your sign," Chief Nora said, voice shaking but triumphant. "The ancestors reject you." But Papa Dike did not speak. He stared at the symbol as though seeing his own grave. Obina approached the throne. The courtyard smelled of wet ash and scorched wood. The rain should have cooled it, but heat still radiated from the seat. "You cannot sit there," I blurted. He paused. "Why?" he asked. "Because the shrine warned you. It said you carry fire." His gaze softened briefly. "Fire is not always destruction," he replied. "But sometimes," Papa Dike whispered hoarsely, "it is judgment." All eyes turned to him. The old man's shoulders sagged under the weight of memory. "I took you," he confessed suddenly, voice barely audible over the rain, "because I feared you." The courtyard froze. "The oracle said you would break tradition, that you would end the council's rule, that you would change how kings are chosen." Obina said nothing. "I thought exile would protect the village, but prophecy does not disappear. It waits." Chief Nora stepped back, horror dawning on his face. "You told us the child was cursed," he hissed. Papa Dike's eyes filled with tears. "I lied." The word fell like a stone into water. Ripples of anger spread instantly. "You deceived us," a woman cried. "You stole our future," a man shouted. The storm roared louder, as if feeding on our chaos. Obina climbed the palace steps slowly, every movement deliberate. He stood before the throne, not sitting, not touching, just staring at the charred wood. "I did not come for revenge," he said quietly, "but I did not come to kneel either." The rain began to ease. The wind slowed. The entire village held its breath. "Tradition protects us," Chief Nora argued desperately. "Without it, we are nothing." "But tradition also imprisons us," Obina replied. "You fear change more than injustice." The words struck deep, because they were true. I had grown up believing power belonged only to blood, that leadership was decided before a child could walk. But what if the prophecy had not meant destruction? What if it meant transformation? Obina turned to the crowd. "If I sit on this throne, it will not be because of a scar," he said. "It will be because you choose me." Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Choose? We had never chosen a king. Kings were announced, declared, inherited. "Blasphemy," Nora spat. But the villagers were no longer listening to him. They were looking at Obina, at his steady eyes, at the rain-soaked indigo cloth clinging to his shoulders, at the scar behind his ear, at the man who had every reason to burn Orogbu, yet stood asking for its voice instead. Papa Dike fell fully to his knees. "I was wrong," he said, bowing his head. "If fire must cleanse us, let it begin with truth." The storm clouds began to part. A thin line of sunlight broke through. It touched the throne, touched Obina, touched the cracked crescent symbol on the wall. And something impossible happened. The burnt wood of the throne began to glow. Not red, not angry, but golden. Soft, warm, like sunrise. The ancestral voice echoed faintly one final time. "Fire refines what is worthy." The heat did not spread outward. It moved inward, into the throne, into the courtyard stones, into us. I felt it in my chest. Not fear, not destruction, awakening. Obina turned to the crowd. "Do you want a king chosen by birth or one chosen by courage?" Silence. Then slowly a woman stepped forward. Then another. Then a farmer. Then the blacksmith. They knelt. Not because tradition demanded it, but because they wanted to. One by one, the village of Orogbu bent their knees, not to blood, but to choice. Chief Nora stood alone, trembling. "This is madness," he whispered. But madness did not answer him. The sun did. Obina finally placed his hand on the throne. This time, the earth did not shake. It settled. He sat, and nothing burned. The crescent symbol behind him sealed into a full moon, complete, balanced, and in that moment I understood the prophecy. The child of shadow was never meant to destroy Orogbo. It was meant to burn away its fear. But as the villagers cheered softly, as hope replaced suspicion, I noticed something no one else did. At the edge of the courtyard, near the shrine path, the horned shadow still lingered, watching, smiling, because fire may refine what is worthy, but it also attracts those who hunger for power. And a king chosen by courage will always face a greater enemy than tradition. The real reign of Ubina had just begun.